So, well, crikey, this is a pretty big subject for me because 10 years ago, I would say, I was having some challenges in my own life, and I think when you go through challenges, you've got two options. You either take them and grow, or you let them destroy you. Okay, and that's a choice. There's nothing else. You've just got to know that is a choice. And back then, I didn't really like myself, right? I didn't particularly feel that great about myself. I was carrying a lot of weight. I was unhealthy. I smoked. I probably done things that I shouldn't have been doing in my life. If I was trying to get to this place, then doing these things, it wasn't kind of going to be congruent. It wasn't going to help. It was actually only going to take me further down. And so I didn't feel great about myself, right? I felt like crap. And I know that actually inside of that person back then is the person that I'm sitting on a camera today, and I've done loads of videos in the last 4 or 5 years, stood up on stage, presentations, worked with clients, been in really challenging environment situations that I would never have even imagined or dreamt about doing back then, 10 years ago. And these fundamental differences that came about in my life were because of having people that genuinely loved me and cared for me around me, who gave me advice. But ultimately, it was nice to be told that you've got these skills, these strengths, but unless you believe it yourself, you feel like you're just full of shit, right? Does that make sense? So I actually felt really crap. I didn't feel great about myself. I had a great team in the corporate world, but I wasn't what I would consider to be walking my talk. So anyway, I've put this video out there today about, I want to make you so proud, because we all have talents and strengths. Everyone's got talent and strengths and unique things that only you possess, skills. All of those gifts that you've got are yours only, right? How often do you think about them? How often do you think about what you've got? How much time do you put into thinking about the things that you haven't got? Do you put more time into the things that you haven't got? Or do you put more time into the things that you have got? You see that switch? What I started to do years ago, I read this book, I think it was called Law of Attraction, and it started to make me think about things differently. I'll never forget this. Because I used to think, believe it or not, and people who know me now and probably didn't know me back then are like, are you kidding me? You weren't like that. I'll show them a few pictures and you can see where I was, right? I used to think about the worst things that could happen all the time, right? To the point where on a Monday morning I was driving in on a corporate world, right? And I had 75, 80 people working for me at the time, and I'd be thinking, who's going to resign today? Amazing, right? That was my mindset, right? I'd have my 3 fags on the way to work because it was a 45-minute journey. So I'd have every 15 minutes, I'd look, that was my treat, right? And I'd be getting to work. What was amazing was I started to listen to videos or more CDs back then in my car. So I'd have my CDs, which were really positive, right, going on in the background. I'd have my fags, which were basically killing me. And then I'd have my mindset, which was telling me that everything was just about to go wrong. And it was because of the surroundings that I found myself in some respects. And it was because I hadn't actually dealt with some of the stuff that had been hanging on to me all those years. And my wife said to me about the same time, you've got to learn to love yourself before you love anyone else, right? And, it sounds like a real female statement, not being stereotypical, but as a guy back then, I was a bit like, what the fuck? Learn to love yourself. Yeah, that's arrogance, isn't it? If you love yourself, if you really love yourself, you're the kind of guy that nobody will want to get to know or be around because you're full of shit, you're full of yourself, right? But I didn't really understand what she actually meant by that. And it made me think, did I love myself? Did I look in the mirror and really start to see the person that I really was? Or was I looking on the surface, right? So at the time I was looking at how bad I looked, all the crap things, the spots, the drawn look, the way I felt about myself at the time, overweight, right? So I was looking at myself basically going, you look like a bag of shit. And the law of attraction was great because what it taught you was if you focused on looking like a bag of shit, you'd carry on looking like a bag of shit, right? So anyway, just to come back from that subject and talk about what I was telling myself every day when I looked in the mirror, brushing my teeth, I look like rubbish, I look like crap. I was focusing all of my energy and all my time on what I wasn't. and giving myself such a hard time, right? I was not literally, love yourself. If you would listen to my inner voice, my language to myself was really less than positive. It was more about digging myself out all the time, telling me how bad I was. But law of attraction and other people that were positive influences around me talked about affirmations, right? And start to focus on what you've got. And I remember in one of these books, or one of the things, it said, write down all the things that you're really proud of. Write down all the things that you've achieved. Write down all the things that you've done. Write down all the possessions that you've got. Write down and focus on your key strengths, the things that you feel you've got as an individual, right? And I started to write those things down. And this was the first time I've ever done this. I think I was like 33, 32 at the time, and I know you're thinking you couldn't have been that old, but honestly I was at that time. And I was writing down things, I was thinking, yeah, I've achieved that. I've done this. I've got a property. I'm married. We just had our first daughter. I think it was, we were pregnant actually at the time with our first child, and I was convinced I was never going to be able to have children. And I just changed my mindset literally overnight. I started to think about what I got, who I was, being more genuinely more grateful for who I was as a person, right? Does that make sense? So I'd look in the mirror every day and I'd have a post-it note there, and I'd be reminding myself, a little card, it'd be in my car, and I'd remind myself of actually all of these great things. I was alive, right? I had good friendships, I had great people around me. There's loads of things that were really cool and really good. But actually it was the bit that really sent me to this next level where actually who I really was as a person, that doesn't change, right? You have that when you're born. You just forget about it as you grow up. There was this story, right? And this story, it always reminds me, there's 105-year-olds measured on their self-belief, their self-worth, right, at the age of 5. Now, if you remember going back to 5 years old, right, what do you remember? You used to play games. You used to just be totally playing all the time, totally curious, asking questions all the time, having fun. So 95% of these kids had high levels of self-belief, self-worth. They got the same kids, those at the age of 5. They gave them another 13 years, right? And they got them back and done the same measurements with them, right? Looking at their self-belief, self-worth at the age of 18. What do you think happened? Well, it literally switched itself around. Where 5% believed in themselves, so 95% of them lacked confidence in who they really were, who they are. There was growing anxieties, and this study was done over 20 years ago, so you've got to think, what's that like now with social media, right? So this is a really important subject for me, and one of the reasons why I've done this is that if you're going to lead other people, you've got to lead yourself. If you feel as a leader that you want to go and grow a business with people, then you've got to grow yourself. You've got to figure out who you really are, what's inside, and start to unlock that potential. Because you've got it. You've got everything you need. All the answers are within you right now, right? All of those strengths, all those skills you possess, they're there right now. You just might have forgotten about them. You might have been deconditioned over the years, like those kids were from 5 to 18. And I think, having recently spent a lot of time with some of the guys in our organisations, and, we've just opened our 7th company, which is an incredible feat and something I would never have even imagined. I used to think owning a company, having my own business, was way out of my reach. Having 7 and feeling like we can continue this journey feels really cool. And it's not about bragging, it's just thinking back to where I was 10 years ago to where I am today. I mean, it's a decade of difference. But what made the difference was how proud I started to be and feel about who I really was. Does that make sense? I stopped looking outside of myself for the answers and started to focus inside of myself on my development. So I started to read a bit more, listen to more people that were positive, people that had made it, people that have gone in the direction that I was going in, surround myself with some new people, different people, people that would encourage me, not necessarily people that would want to criticise me. I'm quite happy for criticism, but when it became about you, when you're not around, that's another level, right? So you start to surround yourself with the right people. And when you do that and you start to focus on who you are and what you've got, something changes. So I'm going to give you some advice. Affirmations are for you, nobody else. I want you to start writing down on this video what you've got. who you really are, right? Because actually this has really started to help our organisation grow, because those central values for me, which are integrity, commitment, energy, those real things that I represent, have now become the pillar of our growth in our businesses. So when we recruit people, I'm looking for the same fundamental values, because if my values match their values, we're going to go on some incredible journey. I don't even know where it's going to end up. But if they didn't have integrity, there's a challenge straight away. So actually knowing who I really am as a leader has definitely massively helped me to feel better about myself, to have better relationships, to feel more confident, to do things that I would never have even thought I was going to do. You know, I'm talking like incredible differences, fundamental differences that if I was to go back in my life and look from that moment and look to where I am just today, I would have said, no way in the world. And the change was the way I started to talk about myself. So those affirmations, those things, write them down, put them on your mirror. I've got a great affirmation that's on my mirror at the moment about the way we're going to grow people to grow our organisation, right? I know which direction we're going in. Do you know which direction you're going in? Are you your number one fan at the moment? If you're not, become your number one fan. Because if you don't love yourself, nobody else will. And if you don't lead yourself, you're not going to lead others. So take my advice. Start telling yourself a different story. Hope you enjoy this one, and good luck with the homework.